Oh, I bet you that's why. Oops. Hide from mobile. Okay, there's that up and running. Get the PNG tuber up. I said PNG tuber. I'm gonna move that over here and make it a little tinier. Wait, how do I do that? Zoom in? Zoom out. Okay. Up. How do I? And I need to tweak my volume, and that means it keeps talking. I forget how that thing works. Okay, so that's the VTuber there, but we gotta get him showing up here. Oh, there you go. We're PNG tubing away. I need to pull up my chat in another window. Show up there. Do we show up in chat box though? Maybe not. Maybe it takes a second. Why is chat box not want to be chat boxing? There we go. Okay, so that's there. That's great. That should not be hopping up there. Hide that. Loading box over here. Do. I grabbed water. I power cycled. PowerPoint 1 and 2. Okay. Welcome. You're not late. I'm still doing a little bit of setup. But now that you're here, you're going to very briefly maybe hear something. I can't tell if you can hear this. Let me know if you can hear this.
This is one of the most famous experiments in linguistics. One of these shapes is called booba, the other...
And I had to hide again, so no one gets too smart. Did that video play with audio? Heck, can you even hear me is the real question. Oh, don't open Discord. I tried to close Discord. You're in the wrong mode again. No worries. Oh, are you watching vertical? Hopefully I have interest in sharing the vertical link everywhere. That'd be annoying. I also feel like the delay is pretty significant from when I feel like I heard you listening in the other room briefly. Okay, I'm gonna play the audio one more time.
This is one of the most famous experiments in...
Did you hear that? Because you had to catch up. That makes sense. You're live now.
This is one of the most famous experiments in linguistics. One of these shapes is called booba, the other is called kiki.
I feel like I'm hearing it in the other room, but it's kind of muffled. Maybe I just hear myself on a delay. You got held captive by a YouTube short. That's crazy. Was it one of my YouTube shorts? Is that what I'm picking up? I don't necessarily need you. Can you hear the video that played? That's what I'm checking in on. I don't think you need to grab your headphones. I'm not worried about bleed. I'm just worried if you can actually hear that video. From your computer, yes. Oh, but from mobile, no, because it's not. That makes sense. That makes sense. Um, cool. It was much louder than me. That's good to know. I'm gonna turn that down. I wish I could boost myself more, but I think I just need to enunciate more and speak a little louder. All right, but we will worry about that later. And we're gonna kind of start the stream here. Okay. Anything else I need to grab? Oh, you hear it mobile too. Okay, cool. Ooh, okay, so. Blah, blah, blah. Welcome to episode 6 of our stream, where we are looking at episode 6 of Akane Banashi, called Terrakoya. This covers chapters 13 to 15 of the manga, and today's main topic is, do shapes have sounds? And we're also kind of getting into something I teased away at the start of this stream in episode 1, so I'm excited about that. But let's get straight into it. Class reminders, adaptation report, we'll do the lecture, and then we'll talk about the trip I just took to New York City, and report on that too. One thing you will want to do is grab a pen and paper, or open like a Word document, or on a phone notes document. We're going to have an activity later on, so it'll be nice just to be able to jot some things down. I'll remind you again as we get closer. As always, please support the main official stream of the show. Please support official channels for reading the manga, whether it's via Shonen Jump or via Manga Plus or wherever else it is in your area, or of course buy physical. Another reminder: don't miss next week's stream. Next week's stream, we are going to be talking about this unique word balloon that I teased all the way back in episode 1. So be sure to be here for that. And speaking of upcoming streams, we'll be streaming every Tuesday at 7, 7:10. Oh gosh, 7:17. We'll be streaming until June 23rd. So please like the channel, or like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications so you do not miss those streams. And then if you have any questions or comments, I will respond in the comments. But also if you have things you want me to cover in the future, or something you saw, leave a comment for me and I'll maybe add it into future videos. So happy to kind of keep that channel communication open. But without further ado, let's get into the adaptation report. So this week we had episode 6, Terrakoya, which went back to the trend of covering 3 chapters: chapter 13, chapter 14, and chapter 14 again. That should be chapter 15. As you can see, last we went to 2, I went to 3. I copy pasted some things but didn't think about the animation order. That's fine. One thing I thought was interesting is the general chatter I saw online is people felt that this episode was paced better, even though it's kind of covering the same number of pages as the other ones have been covering. It's not necessarily a different thing. So I thought that was really interesting that folks liked. The folks I think like this more, and looking at the stuff they covered and what they showed, I think they don't go too far into Koguma's story itself in a way that doesn't feel like it's necessarily rushed. We know it's just kind of we get a little bit of information there. Additionally, Akane's performance is pretty bare bones as well here, so I think it helped in that way. But I'm also curious, and I'm not doing this now, maybe won't ever, but I'd be curious to know, like, panel per panel almost how much have they been adapting, if the other chapters have been dense on a chapter level and maybe the chapters are breathing a little bit more. Well, we'll see. But yeah, it's finding a good rhythm. I do think they'll probably stick to maybe like 3 or so for the next few episodes, but I also think that the next stories are really well balanced, and I think they'll be able to cut around well, so I'm looking forward to those episodes. But if we look at our total chapters adapted chart here, so here's our previous projection, which, as you can tell, kind of bumps around a little bit, but generally it's keeping that same about average of 3 chapters. I think right now we're like a 2.8 is our average. Here's what's actually happened. A little bit off projection. We had a little bit more than our projection had shifted to. And here's our future projection. Pretty close to where we're at. Like I said, the fun balloon, I've been teasing this now for 5 streams. I'll tease it for one last 6 stream. We'll talk about it next stream and a little bit this stream. But we've got this mystery word balloon shape. And then we've got our total pages adapted. Again, similar-ish shape to the last chart. And there we go. So we've just crossed the 300 mark. So it's kind of fun to see this. I thought we'd have more intriguing things as we do this, but I think because they're just adapting at such a steady pace, I really am just drawing a line for you every week. So that's how it goes. Oh, and we still got some goofy animations here. Whee! It did start to decrease briefly and then went back to its old angle. So you know what? I was wrong on that. We'll see what happens when they hit the inside the next big arc. How's it still going? Why is this? Okay, that's fun. All right, and that brings us to our lecture. So our lecture today is Do Shapes Have Sounds? And this is where I want to get into a recap from last week. We ended last week talking about narration and thought balloons and all that with this slide. And I said something that I don't know if I really got into, and I feel like I've danced around in the past as well. When we've talked about character voices, and I've said things like, "Oh, these thoughts are rigid," or "These thoughts are flexible," or "This voice is soft and this voice is hard," and so I want to kind of start teasing some of that out, and we're going to start with an activity, a very easy A or B activity, and so what I want you to do is on a piece of paper, in a Word document, in your phone, write this down on your document. Essentially, we're going to have 6 questions or maybe 6 rounds. This says 5, it should be 6. You're going to have 6 rounds, and for each round, you're going to have an A and a B. So you'll fill out 2 parts of your answer. If you are watching this on YouTube, I did on like desktop, I did paste this in the description, so you should be able to just even like copy paste that A, B 1 through 6 from the description itself. And I'm just going to leave a moment for people to do that. And you won't necessarily need to type this into chat, so don't worry about that. I maybe will ask for a general score of sorts towards the end. But even this activity is less of a score and more of a very small sample size to see how people do, and if we kind of follow along with some research that's out there. Also, welcome Aaron. Thanks for joining. We've actually had quite a few people pop in here, so thank you everybody. Okay, I'm gonna keep going with just the description of the activities. So it gives you a little bit longer, hopefully. Again, it's gonna be 5 rounds, A or B. So for each question, you will need to select which of the 2 choices match one of the 2 options. There's definitely better ways to write that, but I'll be honest, I didn't have a lot of time to work on this one today, so kind of getting a lot of first thought, best thought. So for example, you might have 2 choices. In this case, it's Pikachu and Akane. And you might have 2 options, and you have it here. And then you would write down, like in example question A, oh, A is Pikachu, and example question B, B is Akane. Cool. Hopefully we're all following along. This, it's going to make more sense once we get into it. Additionally, even if you are unsure, it is important that you make a guess. If you're watching the VOD at this time, feel free to pause until you have everything written down. Everybody else, we're moving on. So these first ones are some Chinese characters. One of these characters means good, and one of these characters means bad. So let's select which one means good, or which one you think means good, and which one you think means bad. Next. One of these is easy, and one of these is difficult. Can leave it on screen for just a little bit longer. I don't want you to necessarily overthink it, but I do want to make sure you get time to look at it. Without fail, my headset loves to die, even though it's been charging during the start of this. To the degree that I'm like too fast, I'll back up. To the degree that I think like something is weird is happening with OBS and my headset because it just refuses to stay on. Okay, so thank you for letting me know it's too fast. I'll stay on this one for a little bit longer. So one of these is good, one of these is bad, and the second set, one of these stands for easy, one of these stands for difficult. And don't necessarily overthink it. Just kind of go with that gut vibe. In this one, these do not stand exactly for a bird and fish, but one of these is the name of a bird, and one of these is the name of a fish in a Peruvian language, in a language in Peru, which I don't actually have written down, but we'll get to later. So if you were to think, oh, this one, if you know, this is maybe a bird, this is maybe a fish, and no searching for these. That's cheating. And now we're gonna head a little bit more into the abstract with our next one. Look at our buddy here, and you had to say one of these is Pika and one of these is Chew. Which is which? And then here, I don't want to describe these. These are two different word balloons for the nature of copy pasting to make sure it wasn't too obvious. This is just the top of one of the balloons, but the whole balloon kind of has the same similar shape all the way around. It is a round balloon, but mostly just looking at the line of it. And it's another word balloon with this line. So referring to this one as balloon X and balloon Y. And for these two faces, which of these is speaking with balloon X, and which of these is speaking with balloon Y? And lastly, which of these is Kiki, and which of these is Booba? Now, in true teaching fashion, I just came back from like a 4-day trip. I've been scrambling with my lesson. And, you know, I stayed up really late because our train got in, and then we ate dinner, and I fell asleep at like, I don't know, 3:30. So in classic really sleepy, tired teacher, we're gonna kick it off over to someone else to talk about this. So I'm going to be playing this video from Tom Scott. It's actually written by some other folks, and he just is the one narrating it for his channel. But this video is called "Which is Booba and Which is Kiki?" So let me just go ahead here, and we're gonna. Oh no! Don't do that! Don't do that!
One of these.
No, it all fell apart. I need to grab. You heard nothing. Hopefully, there we go. There we go. Got to roll in. Got to roll in the TV cart. There we go. Okay. We're going to turn off the lights. Oh, the lights part didn't work. There we go. Turn off the lights and make sure that you can see. Oh, that's annoying. I want to make sure I give my credit to my people, which is oh gosh. See, the rolling in I thought was going to work, but I think what I ended up doing is I rolled the wrong parts. There's my credits. See, my credits should be okay. So the credits should be over here. We're gonna roll the card out. We're gonna roll. All right. Yeah, this TV's absolutely fallen over. I like practice this and it works so well, and absolutely not at all surprisingly, it fell apart immediately while doing it live. Okay, here's our video credits because that's important to the video credits, and God knows what's gonna happen when I actually start playing the video here. Do let me know if the audio doesn't come through. But let me turn on this. If you're watching the VOD of this, I'll probably cut this out, and I just encourage you to go to the video to watch it yourself. All right.
This is one of the most famous experiments in linguistics. One of these shapes is called Booba.
Not yet on.
It's called Kiki.
Oh no,
which is
of course, like everything else.
This was invented in 1929 using slightly different words, and it's been refined over time. For most people, the pointy shape is Kiki, and the rounded shape is Booba. The majority of studies. Wow, that is a.
This really does
give
like hungover.
The majority of studies find that pointy shapes are more associated with unvoiced plosives and front vowels. So ta, pi, ka. This is one of the most famous experiments in linguistics. One of these shapes is called Booba, the other is called Kiki. Which is which? This was invented in 1929 using slightly different words, and it's been refined over time. For most people, The pointy shape is kiki, and the rounded shape is booba. The majority of studies, wow, that is a lot of citations. The majority of studies find that pointy shapes are more associated with unvoiced plosives and front vowels, so ta, pi, ka. And round shapes are associated more with voiced plosives, nasals, and back vowels, so bu, ge, no. Okay, but that's just English, right? We have words like point and balloon. Maybe we're just copying associations from words that we already know. One of the founders of modern linguistics has an entire theory named after him about there being no relation between the form of a word and what it represents. But there is a study where English speakers were given pairs of words in a language from Peru. In each pair, one word was for a bird and one was for a fish. And the English speakers, who didn't know the language, who knew nothing even close to the language, they could sort those words into birds and fish a little bit better than chance. Not well, but out of hundreds of people answering thousands of questions, they got 58% right. That is a statistically significant result. And there's another study where Hebrew speakers were given pairs of Chinese characters with opposite definitions, and then they were asked to match up the characters and what they meant. Again, slightly better than chance, about 55% right. And if people who speak different languages have even a slight ability to figure out completely unfamiliar words, well, that raises the question, do humans have some sort of built-in associations between sounds and symbols and things in the real world? Booba and Kiki have been tested in a lot of languages, and yeah, there seems to be something there, what researchers call a type of cross-modal correspondence, or sound symbolism. Correlations between phonemes, the sounds we make, and traits like shape, texture, brightness, size, or even taste. Maybe that's down to cross-activation between brain regions. Researchers into synesthesia have spent a long time on that. Or it could be repeated association. An elephant makes a deeper sound than a mouse. A large dog usually barks lower and longer than a small dog. If you shout into a big round cave, it'll reflect back deep, round, resonating tones. Shout into a tiny cave with a lot of sharp angles in it, you'll hear higher, sharper tones. Something that is brittle is more likely to make a sharp sound, something like kiki when you hit it or break it or shatter it. Something soft and round is more likely to make a noise like booba. I need to stress this is one theory from a couple of papers. Don't take this as gospel. It is right to be skeptical about that. Plus, it doesn't always work. A paper from 1975 shows the results of a Bouba-Kiki-style test on Songhai speakers in Papua New Guinea, where the results were like they were picking at random. No preference. And in 2017, another test on Shuba speakers in Nepal. Again, no preference. The likely reason is that the nonsense words they chose could not exist in those languages. It'd be like giving English speakers a test to choose between ngoba and tlat. You can't start a word with or tla in English, so the choice doesn't make sense. The frustrating thing is there isn't much data on the failures. Researchers often don't publish their negative results, and besides, it's very difficult and very expensive to give linguistic tests to people who've never been exposed to any of the major world languages. But according to all those studies, that Bouba-Kiki distinction is true for most people. There may be a link between some sounds and some real-world properties, and that may be why English speakers were able to distinguish birds and fish in that Peruvian language. The birds' names had more high, front, non-rounded vowels, e and e. They had more sharp sounds. And while there are plenty of exceptions, birds do have more sharp beaks and claws than your average fish does. There's an episode all about this on Lingthusiasm, the podcast that's run by my co-author Gretchen McCulloch. I recommend it. The link is in the description.
All right, and we just roll the card out. See how it's moving so smoothly, right? What? Why didn't I do that earlier? What a mess. Okay, and we just had it all together. So that's a really good explainer, and I also like that he kind of gets into the idea that the research is still kind of up in the air. Like we are seeing this correlation, we are seeing these patterns. The exact reasons are kind of a big why, and well, very, very briefly doing some research for this video. One thing I noticed is that like there's some discussion about like, is it tied to like the shape that your mouth makes? Is it, tied to the different properties of different things? There's a weird one where they were testing it with little baby chicks who are like 2 or 3 days old, and they also somehow were making these correct associations. How they tested it, I did not read past the headline, so you'll have to go find that one later. Like I said, a little bit of a hungover teacher here today in this preparation. But I hope you all enjoyed it, and definitely were paying attention to the video, and we're not all just trying to make sure your voice, you're popping up in chat. We were all so focused during that. Certainly, I'm proud of you, class. You would not disappoint me on this front. Okay. Next. So, in chapter 13, we did 12, 13, 14, or 13, 14, 15. In chapter 14, Akane is performing her story for one of her senior I want to say coworkers. That's wrong. One of one of her seniors at her school, one of her master's other students, and just quick rundown of plot. She is going to be joining a amateur Rakugo competition. Most people who know her think it's kind of cheating for her to do that because she's not really an amateur. She's been practicing for a long time underneath a master, and while she's not formally underneath him until next year when she's done with school, she still is getting trained as if she is. And so people are like, you're kind of at a really strong advantage here. It seems kind of unfair to go up against other college and age and high school age folks. So she goes to her master. Master says, yeah, that's fine, but you have to do it on one condition, which is you need to perform this story. You need to perform at this competition with the story Jugamu. And what we learn very quickly here, as she presents it to one of the senior apprentices, is that Jugamu is a story really hinges around a long tongue twister. So the story has there's a newborn baby. The parents of the baby go talk to a monk, ask the monk, hey, can you give our baby a name? And the monk presents them with a long list of names options. You could name him this, you could name it this, you could name him this, all sorts of options. And the parent is like, oh, well, I mean, these names are all pretty great, and so opts to choose for all of the names, and we get a really, really long name shown here, which is, let's see if I can do this on first try without having read this before and not knowing Japanese. Jugamu, Goku no Surikirizu, Kaijari, Suiguyo no Suigiyomatsu, Ungiyomatsu, Furimatsu, Kuniro, Tokoro, Nisumu, Tokoro, Yaburakoji no Burakoji, Paipo no Shurigan no Gurundai no Poko, Pi no Poko, Pi no Nano Chiomyu no Chiosuke. Oof. Okay. Another way to think of this in English is maybe like John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt, but times 10. It's in that sort of thing. I believe it or not, I do not speak Japanese. Maelstrom, thank you. And so it's a good. It's this is the how it shows up in the comic. It's a tongue twister, and later on in the chapter they kind of get into that, hey, this is a big challenge because not only is this a very simple story, everyone who's there, including people in the audience, probably have all been able to perform this before. So she needs to perform it well. The stakes are high. She wants to meet the person who kicked her dad out of from performing Rakugo. So we've had really, really high stakes, and she's got an extra high hurdle. And so she's going to her seniors to say, hey, can you help me with this? And this is her performing it. And so I want you to just take a look at this panel here, with the word balloon that I just read very well, and tell me, what do you notice that's going on in this page? Specifically about what is she saying about it, or what is she? What does the word balloon that includes that tongue twister? What do you notice about that word balloon? It's rectangular. Yep. We got these attached rectangle shapes. It zigzags. Kind of raggedy on the edges. It's stressful to say all that. Yeah, there's almost to some degree, right? If you look at some of these, the lines aren't necessarily as clean if you thinking about this one or other things we've had said. Got 5 to 7 lines per box. Yeah, they're all filled pretty equal, right? These, I don't have the exact measurements here, but roughly they're all the same height. Yeah, the separating the images. Yeah, I think this is a really interesting one. Is that we see her performing all this, and even though this line here continues into this panel, this repetition to me kind of says that as she's still going, they're hearing it again and again, because you were repeating this phrase a few times within the story. Great observations. Shayla, you'd said it's rectangle. That's rectangle shape. What do you think the rectangle shape says about the speech itself? If you think you're cheating, hold off on saying anything, and because I know you know. Yeah. Feels no, you're good. It feels a little rote. It feels a little formal. No, that's super fine. You didn't do anything wrong. There's one thing I don't want you to give up. Shaylee has read some of these future chapters and seen. Well, I hasn't seen the future anime episodes, but knows kind of what's next. And there's one thing I don't want her to say, which I should not have asked her that question to begin with. But that was not it. I actually wanted you to say like it's formal, right? It's a little rote, a little basic. Going back to the thing I had before, it's a little rigid, right? But I think that's a good observation to have. There's some intensity as well, right? There's a kind of sketchiness there, but these extra lines, like if you look at this box and this box, they're very similar. It's probably the same character saying the same, the same voice, same person, but this one is a little bit more intense than that one is. We can see some of that in these little jaggedy edges there. In the comic on the next page, so we've got Guriko who's following along with her, and he's thinking the key to Jugemu is this repeated phrase. It all comes down to whether or not you can get laughs with that long name, and what you need for that is skill at enunciating. And so I think if we look at that understanding of enunciation being a thing I'm bad at, clarity, right? How good are you at saying individual sounds, making sure you hit all the syllables, making sure that it comes across clearly, and in that way, the text is bold and clear and well spaced. It's well balanced. It's in these rigid lines, maybe not perfectly shaped all the way down, but there's a certain, I think, like formality to it, right? Whether or not it's perfect, she's still learning. That I think we get from that, and so we have him say it's the skills at enunciating. Goes on. Well, why'd that show up right away? It's gonna do it again, isn't it? Don't get out of here, guy. Hold on a second. Let me just duplicate and delete. Great. The ability to speak every syllable of this lengthy sequence cleanly and clearly at a quick, rhythmic, enjoyable tempo. And then he continues to go on and think, but at this level, she's good. Right, she even gets a little crowd gathers around her that said, "Why would she talk so fast?" But that's kind of where the story ends right now. Is Koguma, her senior, says, you're okay, but this isn't going to be enough. And the big tricky part of this is that she has to perform the story twice in front of roughly the same audience and for an audience vote. And he says, if all you do is just get really good at saying it, if you're able to enunciate really, really well, that's not going to be enough. You're going to need to do more than that. So why I bring this up is because if we remember when I was talking about, I think this is episode 4, how the manga loves to do this sort of like show and tell as it talks about new features. It wants us to read the manga, and it wants us to get better at reading the manga and understand the skills and the craft of the manga is using. And so it'll show you a few things, and then it'll tell you what those few things mean. So previously we saw how there was the multiple panels, and how they referred to the fact that she was speaking faster and faster. And then we only knew that speaking faster and faster because we had this commentary from Kyoji about that. So here we see this rigid box, but we don't necessarily know what it means. We get some senses for it, but thankfully Guriko kind of says, well, it's the enunciation, and so then we kind of look at it within that lens, and it'll make more sense to it. But we're also now in the part of the manga and anime where like little arcs get to slow down, so we aren't necessarily resolving everything within one chapter. So after the show and tell, I also mentioned that there's the integration, that after we saw it, the manga will continue to integrate and use this. And that's why I think it's really compelling that we have this panel, uh, because this is just our kind of a starting point. I said it 1,000 times, I'll say it 1,000 times more, where we have this sort of like baseline and change. This is now our new baseline for how she presents on the tongue twister part of this. So there's that. I also realized I hid my chat during all of this. Whoops. Shaylee says that Troye Sivan has said something similar in an interview. The second verse is usually where you lose people, so you try to add new flourishes to the second verse of a song to keep listeners interested. Ooh, yeah, I like that a lot. And that makes sense, right? So many songs are building and building and building. I never thought of it from the means of like they're gonna get bored. Give them something new. So yeah, this is kind of our baseline. And I will say this: when I was first reading through this manga, I didn't flag this page once. It wasn't until later that I came back to this and went, whoa, 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 what? So that's kind of the magic of this series, is they are starting to show us things or sneak things in that we don't necessarily understand until later, or maybe never fully understand. And again, speaking of the whole Kiki and Booba of it all, we were talking about these like straight lines, that rigidity, that clarity, the idea of like hitting those like plosives, hitting those sharper sounds. We get the sense that she's like, for sure enunciating and really clear on that, which I think is compelling. So we're going to enter ever so briefly into spoiler territory. If you are watching the anime and don't want to be spoiled for the next episode, I won't say anything directly, but I will ask a question that I think will get into some people's heads and therefore change how they might view the next episode. I want to let people experience that magically. So I'm going to move through 2 more slides. If you are watching this right now, and I would say lower the volume, and then I'm going to move the little stop symbol down here in this little corner. And so all you have to do is just look at the little corner, look at nothing else, just look at that little corner, and then when you see it disappear from that little corner, you're good to come back again. There it is, it's in the corner. This is your moment. So this is the word balloon in this chapter. Here is the word balloon later. And I'm just going to leave those up there for comparison. I'm not going to say anything else. But when we talk about baseline and change, here's our baseline. There's our change. And I look forward to discussing all of that next week. That's it. Spoilers over. Like I said, very minimal thing. But I'm the kind of person who, if you like tease me with just a question of a thought of a thing, I will unravel it way too far and overthink anything I watch in media. It's a blessing and a curse. I spent the entire time watching The Last Jedi being like, when did they get to that planet with all that red salt stuff? I didn't know salt back then, but all the red smoke. And it's like right at the end of the movie, so I was kind of just like waiting for that. It was maybe not the best experience. Anyhow, that's kind of it on the lecture. Like I said, it's a shorter one today because I've just been traveling, and we're really going to get into this stuff next week. But the lecture today is kind of do shapes of sounds. And the answer class is, yep, they definitely do. It's synesthesia. There's something there working. I don't want to say whether or not I know what it is, whether it's repetition, whether it's secrets, whether it's how our brains are wired. I don't know what's going on there, but shapes definitely do have sounds. And so we can perceive shapes as having sounds. And so on that, we're going to go back to our activity. I'm going to show you the questions as before. Maybe you saw a few of the answers inside the video, and good for you. And you know what? You feel free to change, right? If you want to look at these again and think, maybe I have it wrong, good, we'll choose a swap. That's fine. I'll be curious if you do, let me know. So this is number 1 and number 2, right? We had one of these stands for good, one of these stands for bad. One of these stands for easy, one of these stands for difficult. And here is what those are. We were good, we were bad, we were easy, we were difficult. I got these right too when I was putting this together. For me, if I look at these, again, I don't know anything. There's something about this like O shape here that feels more open. There's something more like all of these are much more rigid in how they cross. I don't know. It's weird. Easy and difficult. This grid to me reads math, reads complex, and so very much like I had it as difficult. And this one, again, I think there's something to like this softer. It's still complex as far as the like actual like lines go, but it is simpler. There's that was for me. As I go through this, please let me know if you had any thoughts for why you picked one of the other. Aaron, you had said the same. Not sure if that's in response to me or to Shaylee, who said I got easy and difficult, but not good and bad. Oh, that didn't transfer correctly, so you didn't get a chance to redo that one. Whoopsies. I don't know how to pronounce either of these words. But this first one was the bird. This last one was the fish. Also, what was it? What did you say here? You felt like this was good and this was bad. I mean, again, like my reason is like there's something about this line here, but that's so close to this, right? Like that same line. So yeah, I don't know what it is. You said the intersections. I mean, yeah, there's like these like X vibes here for sure. Yeah. You think A was more pleasing shape? In some ways, totally. I think there's like some more like rhythm to it. If you think about like when like sketching like characters, you talk about it's not rhythm. There's like a word for the first lines you drop down, which is like the pose almost, and I'm totally spacing the word for it. But I think it kind of follows that where like everything kind of like goes into one another nicely, where there's a little bit more like sharp turns and edges. So yeah. Okay. And then this one, I've got an answer for. I think this is one where like, I wanna know. Oh, Shaylee's like, I got this one right. Wait. So yeah, I'll hold this back up again. We didn't discuss fish. I had it on the screen for like a split second. Oh, it went backwards. That's why I had my slides backwards. Go back. Okay. So he mentioned something about like the sharper sounds here, right? And maybe that's to do something with like, the sharpness of birds. I saw some people online talking about how like a lot of these words that it came from maybe are actually tied to the sounds that the birds make, so that can kind of play into it. Although I believe like the people of the region weren't the people who were taking these quizzes. Um, uh, and then yeah, so Aaron, you're saying like this person sounds like a bird call, totally. Shaylee agrees with it. It sounded like a bird call. Yeah, the like choo choo key, like there's like that. It does have that sort of rhythm to it. Mouts kind of gives the perch vibes. There's something that ow sound there for sure. Something that's ow. Well, I don't know how to say that. I'm so bad at like phonemes and all that. Yeah. Just a single syllable. Sure. Totally. It's like as opposed to the multi-syllable word. To me too, it's like there's the sharpness of the like kit that really feels like bird. I think like the beak and the claws and all of that feel very bird. All right. Pikachu. This again, there's no correct answer to this necessarily. I have my reasons for it. So I actually want to see what y'all answered first. And again, if you're watching this later on, please in the comments let me know where you fall in this Pika and Chew discussion. Is the body the Pika and the tail the Chew? Is the tail the Pika and the body the Chew? And honestly, I feel like you could divide non-violently. You could divide Pikachu up in a few different things and have the same debate, right? So Aaron I had body as Chew and the tail as Pika. Shaylee says, because I did Kiki and Booba first, but then it felt wrong. So now Shaylee, you have it flipped, so you have the opposite. Body as Pika and then tail as Chew. Because originally you were thinking Kiki Booba, but then you kind of switched it. Now I'm going to ask you this: why that order now? If at first you felt the Kiki Booba vibe, you went that way, and then you flipped it. Now you've flipped it. What was your reason? You said it felt wrong. What feels wrong? Because Pika feels like the operative part of Pikachu. Sure. Like if you think about the word, like the body is the main part. I can super get that actually. If I had like focused on Pikachu's just the silhouette, maybe without like the ears and the tail behind, I mean that's legit. Like I said, there's no correct answer to this. This is the sort of thing where I'd actually love to like throw this out on the internet and see what people come up with. I feel like if we were to, even like take out like what color, is the yellow Chew and the red Pika or vice versa. I think he plays with the colors. I think he plays with like some of the evolutions, etc. My reasoning is that similar. It's the Chew is the body. It's the softer part, and the Pika is the tail. It's the jaggedness of the tail. But again, I think it's super up for discussion. And another piece of this too is the Japanese word for I had this wrong, but the Japanese word for sparkle is Pika. So that to me, Pika is the electricity part. Like if I ask you which part of Pikachu is electricity and which part of Pikachu is mouse, because it is the electric mouse Pokemon, I think you'd associate Pika with electricity and Chew with mouse. And Chew does not mean mouse. Chew is the sound, is like the onomatopoeia for squeak. So that's that sort of like vibe there too. But I do think you can like break it down in lots of different ways. So this is mine. I don't necessarily think it holds to be true. But there's a lot of different, I think, interpretations to be having with this one. Oh, welcome, Steven. I cut off Pikachu's tail. I did. Hopefully, if you're just joining us, you didn't pay attention to any of what I just said, and you gotta let me know which one's Pikachu and which one's Chew. But yeah, I think like if I want to like look at the other Pikachu's someday and be like, how do these things change? I think it's interesting that the like when they have the Pikachu, there's like the boy and girl Pikachu, and like how the tail loses some of the sharpness, and now how that plays into like gender stereotypes and other things. So yeah, he asked, and then I spelled his own. I did. I know. I clicked back too fast, and then I was like, I wasn't sure if Steven had just joined or not. It was a mess. It's too late. We'll get you on this next one. Here you go. This one I'll hold it for a little bit longer. We've got X and we've got Y here. Well, we're on review, so you're welcome to still answer these next few questions, Stephen. And you just gotta flip the coin. I believe in you. We've got these two different bubbles. Now again, this is a round bubble with this line all the way around, and this is just this bubble with this all the way around. We're seeing X with B and Y with A from Stephen. Give the other folks a chance to chime in here. Oh, actually, they all wrote it down on their sheet of paper, so we got a samesies. And that's what we have here. I don't have the actual exact images. I did show them, I think, at least in the pages earlier. So if I do a quick little, excuse me, this laser pointer gets in the way of everything, let me tell you. If you do snap back here, I do show, we've got this here, and then I think the crying one's on a different page. But yeah, we have that sort of connection there as well. What brought y'all to that decision? Oh man, all my like clicks are happening. Ooh, it matches her hands. Yeah, that's fun. The like both the shape of the fingers and almost like the roundness of it. Yeah, I like that a lot. And like gets more into like how this like the synesthesia of all this, right? The like its body language and its sound and its shape and its lines of how the artist chooses to depict these things too. Like it all kind of goes into that. I mean, you also like look at her mouth has like a bigger, rounder shape. I mean, this is also round, but there's all those vibes in there. the rectangle feels like it feels less of an affect, less emotional in some ways, right? Again, we kind of are perceiving this as like stern or direct. We talked about it being authoritative last time. Yeah. A has sort of a sharp look. Yeah, all really good reasons. I also, this is the thing where I'm like, this was fun to put together, and in a world where I had more time, I would just do this like 100, right? Like we have so many word balloons in this and so many faces in this that I'd love to just be like, all right, can you pair these 50 faces to these 50 word balloons? Let's go. And I think people would get it quite frequently. And our last one, which if you watch the video, you really, I mean, there's no right answer. The whole test is that they're trying to see what people think. So I can't say there's a right answer. But what is the answer that the test has seemed to find? Okay, I'm gonna just push this forward. I was giving Steven a chance. I don't know. The Kiki and the Booba. Right, the round one, the Kiki one. We watched the video on that. So that kind of wraps up our lecture. Like I said, it was a shorter one this week. We can't be distracted in class. That's a write up. But so kind of final thoughts. Like I said, it's a shorter one this week. This chapter does a lot of really good setup, and I look forward to finishing this conversation about those bubbles, those balloons next week. I also wanted just to highlight this really great panel, which is Koguma, her senior, saying that, hey, when you are saying the story, when you are saying the tongue twister, when you repeat the name, it's just sounds, they're not words. And she has to kind of discover what that means over this arc, and I think it's a really delightful story. This is the part in the manga where I think it went from being a thing that I was reading every week that I was like, this is good, I'm having fun with this is cool, to thanks for hanging out. There's a little bit of the earlier VOD, and then honestly we're wrapping up here pretty quick after, so no huge worries there, but thanks for stopping by. But this was the arc that I think made me go like, wow, this story is something special. The craft of the story is something special, and where I first started looking back and rereading and seeing all the work they're getting to get here. So very excited for us to explore some of this and learn more about how we make the words or the sounds more than sounds. How do we make them words? And therefore, how do you make, if shapes are sounds, can shapes be words? And get into all of that fun magic. I was going to talk about my New York City trip. I was going to have a little report. I was going to have photos. I didn't get that done yet, so we'll do that probably next week too. And as always, here's ways you can support. Watch the stream. That's biggest, numberest, onest. Subscribe if you haven't yet. I think actually, you know what? I got to bump up my subscriber count because we went to 18 at some point this week. Woo! So shout out to that new subscriber. Kofi, if you want to send a little tip my way. And Bookshop, if you want to get any books that we talk about here, or honestly any other books, if you go through this link and order any books, any manga, anything else of that nature, you can use that link and give me a little kickback, which would be sweet. And then this is where I start recording some shorts, but I don't have any shorts this week because, like I said, I've been working on this just today, and so I haven't had as much time, but I'm glad we got a little bit of a lesson in. And thank you all so much for hanging out. Let me know if you have any more questions in the chat about this. And yeah, have a good rest of your week. I got to switch to my other. Oh God, I'm in the void. That's not right. Is it this one? There we go. Thank you so much for stopping by. Have a great rest of your night, y'all.